Hi Stephen, welcome back to us again.
Oh, hi Tom, how are you?
Yeah, well thanks mate, well thanks. So today we're looking at interaction models, I hear.
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting topic to view because a few people well, not that many people use these interaction models, and I find them myself very, very powerful.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, so as always, let's set our perspective. And again, the perspective is a mechanism within the tool to create a focus on the particular thing we're modeling. And today we're going to be looking at UML behavioral diagrams. So that's where we're going to find these interaction type of diagrams. So again, we look at this and we're going to set our toolbox to interaction there. And as always, we're going to create a placeholder in the project browser for these interaction models. I'm going to call it interaction models there. And again, I will change the order of that as it's a lower level thing than most of the other things that we've described. We're going to be building a sequence diagram. So the sequence of messages that flow between parts of a system as a type of interaction model. There are two different types of models, but the sequence diagram is the more commonly used, and that's what we're going to look at. Tom, we in previous videos, we were looking at this parking meter system when we created a number of other models, for example, the class model, and I'll look at that there. And this is the important entities in the system. So we have a parking meter. Obviously, we have a motorist and a vehicle that they're parking. We have a parking session and payment and a payment reader. But the model that's probably the most interesting to look at before we do the sequence diagram is the component model. So this was done in a previous video, and this is logical components that are representing kind of the things that are going to do the work of the system. So the use case model is describing the value, the class diagram is describing the entities in the system, the state machine is showing the different states, requirements model, the requirements. But this component model is showing the parts of the system, the logical parts that are going to interact with each other. That's why it's called an interaction diagram. Now, as always, we can do this thing from scratch and we can create a diagram. And so let's have a look at that now. We'll create a diagram here, and it's a sequence diagram. The communication diagram is also a type of interaction diagram, but we're going to create the sequence diagram today. It is a much more commonly used and ubiquitous diagram. We'll call it interaction model here, and we'll call it the sequence diagram. And let's give it a little subtext there of main. It's the main payment interaction, let's say. We can have different sequence diagrams that describe different interactions. But let's do that, creating a behavioral sequence diagram, and we'll hit the create diagram there. And you notice the toolboxes there. We've got actors and lifelines and boundaries and things. Now I can just drag those on to this diagram. So I could drag an actor on, go, there's my actor. And you notice in the project browser, that's created an actor there. And I could, create a lifeline as well. And, I could give that a name, like I could, say payment or something. And those elements are there, and I can drag connectors between them to showing the messages. Now, this is what someone might do if they were starting with the tool and not understanding the deep connectivity between elements in the model and the tracing between different things. So you notice that those elements have gone into the project browser, and an actor and a payment. So that's not the best way to do it. I'm going to delete these ones here, and I'm not going to just delete them from the diagram. I'm going to delete them from the model. So I held the control key down, delete selected items from the model and all diagrams. I'm going to show you, Tom, an easier way to do this.
Interesting. So but before you move on, Stephen, so that's the first time we've seen anything being deleted from the model, from the diagram, so to speak. So I remember we had a diagram where we delete stuff off the diagram and we could add it back. But that's the first time that's affected the model, and that changes all diagrams?
Yeah, those elements then are going to be gone from all diagrams. So you need to be very careful about what you delete. And one of the really, just as an aside here, one of the useful things in Enterprise Architect is this traceability window. So if I had my my payment system, or let's say the meter controller there, and I thought, I don't need this anymore, I might delete it. One of the things you can do is go to the trace window, and immediately when you look at that controller, this window is showing you that it is connected to lots of other elements. And so when I click on any element in the toolbox, it's going to show me what's connected. And there are a whole lot of different relationship types there that you can set, but it's an important thing. The message pops up before you delete the element to be careful, right? That you might delete things off other diagrams.
So the traceability window shows us anywhere in the model that the element's connected, but is there anywhere that shows what diagram it's being used on?
Which diagram the element's being used on?
Yeah, so if I was to delete this and I didn't realize
Right.
that it's being used on another diagram, is there something that EA has that can show me where it's being used on other diagrams?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. So I can click on an element here and say find in all diagrams. Right now, if it was used in multiple diagrams, and let me just do that for you. I'll just open this one up and drag the payment system onto this as a link, and then if I go to that payment system and think I might delete this, I don't really need it. So I could look at the traceability window, but like you said, that's not showing me all the diagrams it's used in. But when I go find in all diagrams, you'll see now that it's used in 2 diagrams, and that pops up. And
Very useful.
as an educator, part of my role is to train and mentor people, and this is a sort of a bit of a litmus test. If you went to every element in your repository and perform this action, element to find the element usage, if it only came up once in this dialog, or if it wouldn't, it would open the diagram by itself. But if even it came up 2 or 3 times, a much more mature model will typically have elements that are used in multiple diagrams. So that's a good way, as a sort of a litmus test of how mature your model is that it will be an element will be used in multiple diagrams. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
very good.
So I'm going to just delete this one off the diagram, and carefully not to delete it off out of the repository. Save the diagram. And what I'm going to do is again use this feature of dragging things onto the diagram. So first thing I'm going to do is someone's going to initiate this, and the motorist is the one that kind of initiates. The meter's just sitting there, waiting to be interacted with, but it's not doing anything. It's just waiting. It's in a ready state. We can see that from our state diagram. What I'm going to do is drag the motorist on. I've got a couple of options here, and I'm not going to talk about this in detail, but there are 2 different options, a link or a lifeline. I'm just going to put it on as a link at the moment, and you can see that the motorist has popped up. Now I've used that, I've reused an element that we've had before, and look, all the notes have popped up, an individual who operates or is responsible for a vehicle, so that's good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and reuse the elements that are in my component model, and I'm going to choose the display unit, the meter controller, the time manager, and the payment system. Right, and I'm going to just drag those onto the diagram, and I'll say select for all, and I'm going to use them as links as well. Now they go on like that.
That's interesting. So you're using different types of elements from other different diagrams that we've had and combine them onto one diagram.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So the thrust of this diagram is that when you have a component model, right, and if you were to give this to a development team or implementation team, they can see structurally how these things are connected, but they can't see this behavioral interaction, which is the messages that are going between each element, because the payment system might be a cloud-based thing, and not located in anywhere near the meter at all. Obviously, the meter controller, the time manager, they may not be co-located. The display unit and the meter controller will probably be in the same location, but the sequence diagram is showing me the messages that are flowing, between the different components. And if you're looking at implementation team, a development team, giving them both the component model and one or more sequence diagrams. It may not just be one sequence diagram, it may be a number that cover off the different interactions that a user could have. Because remember, in our use case model, they could, when the meter was expired or before it was expired, right, they could extend the session, right? So in that use case model, we would have had let's just open that up, get parking meter, pay for parking. Well, we don't have it in there. We've got it now in our state model actually, but we could then go back and augment our session. But you can see it here, extend the session. So the models are all related to each other. The use case model as it stands is not wrong, but we start to see these other diagrams and other interactions informing things that we need to tighten up in the system. So we might go back now at some point and put in the use case that the motorist wants to, after they've checked the remaining time, they may want to extend the session. Yeah, it might be expired and luckily they didn't get fined, or it may only have a few minutes left on it and they want to extend it because they're having a meeting with a friend in a cafe. So back to our diagram. Again, here these things are. They've just been put onto the diagram, and we need to lay them out in a nice way. So again, let's just choose our layout thing, apply the default option, and EA does the magic of creating these interactions. Now, we can also look at these elements one by one, and if we have a look at these, so we have a look at this, we tick interaction points. If we look at the features list, if we went into features here, we've got a number of different things here that are showing all these features. So we've got parts and properties, receptions, operations, and what we can do is we know that this thing has got an interaction point, which is the payment. So if we look in here at this interaction point, and maybe we haven't applied that yet, let me just go back and look at that. Show owned elements, no, that's not going to do it. I'm going to go back and look at this component model, and it has got this interface attached to it, and let me just go back and check that has been applied properly. We're going to look at this for tick, the payment thing here. We're going to look at the properties of this and check that thing got applied, and it is this payment one here, and it's a provided interface. Let's just save that and go back to our sequence diagram. Payment systems there, yeah, and that one is there. Yeah, I appreciate that. That did. I've got these in. I should have changed the order of these, and so that's a simple thing to fall into. I'm going to move this guy payment thing over a little bit, and that's going to line up there beneath that one. And I'm going to this from component thing there. It's showing up where that's coming from. I'm going to hide that for the moment, and we'll go into the properties there and look at the element properties, the diagram properties, and turn off this show namespace because I'm not interested in seeing that at the moment. So it looks a little bit cleaner then now to look at that, and I'll line that one up there. And so now what I'm going to do is to create the interactions. So the first thing I might want to do is look at this display unit and look at the operations that it's got, and I can put a new operation on this right from this diagram. So I could do it on the component model as well, put it in there, and so I could do it here. And let's actually do that, and we'll say accept selection. So that's the accept selection there. It goes into that model. If I come back over here now to my sequence model, and I'm looking at dragging a message from the motorist to the display unit, and we'll say accept those things there, and I'll look at this guy here, and I'm going to look at my properties, and in here we can see the accept selection there, and that's an operation.
So you're basically applying that to the sequence.
Yeah, exactly right. So in again the meter controller one there, calculate payment. That was already in there. We already had that operation in there, and so we can simply select this lifeline again, drag that across, choose that message, and it's magically there as well. So save that, and you can see we're building up this this diagram quite quickly. And I fell into this trap with this time manager before, and even experienced users, Tom, you can fall into traps, or you get a little bit blind for a moment. But the system, as you pointed out, will just will correct you and help you choose the right thing, because the elements will be available there. So the time manager on there, the time manager is going to have an operation of get duration. So let's put that in there, and let's put in the parameters again here.
Okay, so we can set that on both screens then, because you set it on the component model first, and now you're setting on the sequence diagram. That's
right. Yeah. So we can put in start time, and we won't worry about putting the parameters in, but obviously you can do that. End time, and those are the parameters that are going in, and so those have gone in there. Now I can simply again drag from this meter controller across to the time manager, select the element there, and I can do that. Now I can just go straight to that operations there by clicking that, and that window's popped up on my other monitor, and that's taken me straight to that there, where I can look at putting some of the other details, behavior, some code in there as well, preconditions, post-conditions, a lot of things, Tom, that can be covered there. So again, we'll choose this on there. Now this time we're looking at something between the meter controller. So when we went off to the meter controller, the time manager, implicit in these messages is a return, so that the value of that get duration is being returned. We're just giving it a set a start time and a finish time, and it's giving us the duration, and the meter controller is then going to calculate the payment detail. So I'm going to go from this one here across to, not to the payment system, but to the payment, and I'm going to drag that guy to I'll just Control Z out of that one, and I'll just do it this way, Tom. It might be easier to see. So again, I can say process or validate card there, and then I can then put another element in. The card's been validated, and again I'm going to come from this one here, and I'm going to go over back to the payment system, and this time there are two operations on there, and this one is process payments. So that's the sequence diagram of the basic sequence I've created. You can see that when I drag that other element, Enterprise Architect has a lot of features to redraw the diagram in the sequence that it wanted, and I put that sequence above some of the other message flows. But this diagram will help people understand it. Now there are other properties on this. For example, I can go into here and talk about timing details. So when that pops up, I can look at those details, and let's just say that there's a timing constraint, a duration constraint on there that says that the payment processing must happen in 1.5 seconds or 1500 milliseconds. So I'll put that in, and watch what happens to the element. It shows that there's some time that's been used up there.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So
because
it's
time
is down the lifeline a bit.
Yeah. So the lifeline is reflecting the time as it's on the diagram. So again, Tom, in other videos we've created legends, and it might be useful to create a legend on this diagram, and I can simply do that by looking at these common elements, grabbing a diagram legend and putting it on here and starting that work. So that legend allows us to define things. I'll move this across a little bit so you can see, and we can define a legend and how that legend works. Now I have a library full of legends and that I can reuse, and so what I'm going to do is, if anyone wants to look at that in detail, you can look at one of the other videos of creating a legend. But in this case here now, I'm just going to drop a legend onto this one here. I'll paste that. Let me just see. I think I haven't copied that yet. I'll just copy it from the library that I've got, and I'll paste it into this model just right here. and then I'm going to drag that legend onto the diagram, and again, EA does its magic, and suddenly anyone that's looking at this model now, I can just hide some of these other buffs. Anyone that's looking at this model now can see that the colors are helping them understand that that's a provided interface there, and you can see that the lifelines have all been colored, the motorist was in blue, and I can change this legend any one way that I want. If I wanted to go into this legend now and say, look, that purple color's a little bit strong, I can say, look, let's change that to another color, and simply apply that, and again, EA does its magic.
Oh, very cool, very cool. That's interesting one, actually. I quite like sequence diagrams, so it's good to see them explained in detail.
Yeah. So just one thing, Tom, I referenced this, but when we were dragging an element onto the palette, we had the choice of putting it on as a link or as a lifeline, and that's a point that's debated even amongst experts about which is the right one to do. But if you wanted to show a whole bunch of different sequences of things, and show things that go on when a message, maybe the meter's expired and someone hasn't renewed it, what's going to happen. Other times when you extend it when the meter hasn't expired, is that going to be added to the end time, or is that going to start from the time that you did the expiry? So lots of kind of in the real world, all systems can be viewed simply, but in the end, there are all sorts of edge cases, complexity about systems. And when you're modeling them, you're trying to both highlight that complexity, but also simplify the view as well. And so you may end up with a number of different sequence diagrams that are describing, the different scenarios of usage. But what this model really does is, for an implementation team or anyone that's looking at this, even support people, Tom, that were, supporting a system, can look at these sequence diagrams and go, what's happening? Or we might have a payment system that's gone down for some reason, and a support team could look at it and go, oh, this is what's happening. We're supposed to be validating the card, and that's not, that validation is not working properly. Maybe there's something wrong with the payment system. So one of my favorite diagrams as well. I love them, and I get a great deal of value looking at them when I'm trying to understand a system that I'm not familiar with.
I'd be really interested in revisiting sequence diagrams to have a look at a few of the advanced features that they have in another video.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to do that, Tom. Like I said, they're one of my favourite diagrams, and let's do a more detailed dive into the sequence diagrams and how powerful they are, and also some of the features that Enterprise Architect has that you don't find in many tools, because they're incredibly powerful. Enterprise Architect can go right from the strategic level right down to a deployment level, and even reverse engineer sequence diagram automatically from existing code.
Yeah, right. Oh, that sounds cool. I look forward to seeing it. Thanks very much, Stephen. Really appreciate your time again. For all those out there who are following along with this video series, please like, comment, subscribe, all the usuals, and look forward to seeing you back to the next one. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Tom.